Sports Talk with Craig Ballard. Thank you for joining me. No, I appreciate that. Whether you're checking out the new YouTube channel, which we're trying to get up and running here, which is very exciting for me, or whether you're checking out the Blogspot address right below there. So the Blogspot is going to have, of course, previous videos, previous shows I've done as well, and previous written blogs as well. So definitely appreciate you checking me out there. If you've seen the show before, if you've seen anything I've done before, you know that around here on Sports Talk with Craig Ballard, each week we take a look at the week that was in the NFL, and we hand out some game balls to performances that impressed us, and we hand out some lame balls for the exact opposite, folks. So without further ado, let's get into it. Game balls and lame balls for Week 7 in the National Football League. Let's start with a couple game balls here. Pretty impressive game for this Houston Texans team. A few game balls to go around here. First of all, they go on the road in a division road game, get the W to snap their losing streak without their number one wide receiver. So already I'm impressed. Now you look at it further. Look at who actually contributed to this win here, and what were these numbers looking like. Wow, how about Arian Foster, folks? 115 yards on the ground and a pair of touchdowns, 119 yards receiving and a touchdown as well. A 3-touchdown day, over 100 yards on the ground and in the air. I mean, this is pretty much a dictionary definition, folks, of a game ball. Extremely impressive job there by Arian Foster. And I'm going to have to take some game balls as well and distribute them throughout that offensive line. What a job that Texans offensive line is doing this year. Not just the numbers I mentioned there for Foster, but how about the other running back on this team, Ben Tate? Ben Tate, 15 carries, and he also goes over 100 yards for the day. So that offensive line, it didn't even matter that they're missing Andre Johnson. The offensive line was getting it done. Absolutely a big-time smackdown laid by this offensive line last week. Majorly impressive, an absolute game ball to open up Week 7 to the Houston Texans offensive line. In that same game, the opponents, the Tennessee Titans. Now, unfortunately, folks, we have some lame balls to hand out to these Tennessee Titans. Let's start with Chris Johnson, running back. At one time, we would have said running back extraordinaire. This year, wow, phenomenal struggles for Chris Johnson. This past week, a boot at home, of course, after a 10-carry, 18-yard performance. I mean, wow, what futility, what poor numbers by Chris Johnson. A terrible job there, absolute lame ball. And unfortunately, I mean, we like this guy, but unfortunately, we're going to have to hand out a lame ball as well to Matt Hasselbeck. He's a wily veteran, absolutely, but this last week, I mean, what was he, 14 for 30, 104 yards and a pair of interceptions. I mean, again, at home in a division game, wow, just not getting it done. Some lame balls for the Tennessee Titans, absolutely. Game ball, how about DeMarco Murray on the Dallas Cowboys? Rookie out of University of Oklahoma. Stand up, Sooner Lisa, and the Sooner fans out there, absolutely. Wow, a 253-yard day for DeMarco Murray, a Cowboys record. You may already be aware, folks, this is not exactly a Johnny-come-lately organization. This is an organization with an absolute history of Hall of Fame running backs. So to be top amongst that list in your rookie year is extremely impressive. Well done, DeMarco Murray, ripping off a 90-plus yard touchdown run as well. He was something else this week. Very, very impressive. Impressive right here, folks. Drew Brees. The game ball for Drew Brees. He's again impressive this last week. How about 31 for 35, folks? I mean, is that completing passes or what? Wow, what a fantastic job distributing the ball to his wide receivers. How about 5 touchdown passes this last week for Drew Brees, folks? Absolutely impressive, absolutely getting it done. As usual, absolute game ball for Drew Brees, absolutely. Lame ball. Speaking of quarterbacks here, now we're going to have to hand out a lame ball, unfortunately, to a guy that we also like, Josh Freeman. Josh Freeman this past week didn't get it done at all for this Bucs team, and this was a big game, folks. This is why it's magnified for me, how he struggled. 4 interceptions he threw. He really struggled quite a bit in this game, and this loss last week against the Bears. And this is why it gets in a lame ball. Anytime you're going to throw 4 picks, you're going to get a lame ball. But this was a really big game, folks. You see in your own division, if you're Tampa Bay in the NFC South, you see New Orleans and Atlanta both pick up wins this last week to elevate themselves and start to distance themselves. You hope not if you're Tampa Bay, but this last week was a real stinker for the Tampa Bay Bucs. Unfortunately, Josh Freeman, absolute lame ball there. Sticking with the lame balls, this St. Louis Rams offense, folks. Lame balls to all 11 members of that offense. And, of course, the main lame ball, and I'd say the blame ball, how about the Josh McDaniels, that offensive coordinator? We remember Josh McDaniels was the head coach in Denver last year. As a coach, not that great. As a person making player personnel decisions, he was an absolute nightmare. And things have not started well in his tenure with the St. Louis Rams. A lot of people were expecting a step forward from Sam Bradford and the St. Louis Rams, in particular from that offense. Again, Bradford in the offense this year. You bring in Josh McDaniels, who had success as the offensive coordinator in New England, but wow, things have just been really, really ugly here. 13 points week 1, then 16 week 2. That went down to 7, then 10, now 3, and last week 7. Pathetic, pathetic numbers, not even averaging 10 points per game, folks. This St. Louis Rams team playing in a controlled climate like the Dome with Sam Bradford, Steven Jackson. They bring in Brandon Lloyd. I mean, there's weapons there. And for them to be a putrid, not even getting 10 points a game, they're the lowest scoring team in the NFL. It's an absolute lame ball. Just a brutal job going on there in St. Louis with that Rams offense. Another team that is really struggling, of course, the Minnesota Vikings. I actually have a game ball this past week for Jared Allen on the Minnesota Vikings. You can still get game balls and losses, absolutely, if you're out there doing your thing. And Jared Allen is out there doing his thing, folks. He continues to be a beast on the defensive line. 11.5 sacks on the year. Fourth week in the last 5 where Jared Allen picked up multiple sacks. He had 2 again this past week. He's been on fire. He's been doing a fantastic job. He's about the only one doing a fantastic job, as we know, in Minnesota, but I digress. Of course, a game ball to Matt Forte. Matt Forte, a shout-out to Chicago Bear fans. I believe in this team seemingly more than a lot of people out there do. I actually do like this Bears team, again, as I say, in the minority. But this last week, Matt Forte, I mean, 25 carries, 148 yards. He's looking for a new contract, and he keeps working like this. That's a 5.8 yard per carry average. That is getting it done, folks. And he took it to the house as well in a big touchdown run. So absolutely, Matt Forte looking for that big contract and really earning it so far in this 2011 season. And Week 7 was no exception. A monster, your absolute game ball to Matt Forte. Congratulations. Really odd here to have a game ball and a lame ball going to the exact same person, one person. How about a lame ball for Tim Tebow that we saw for the first 3 quarters last week in South Florida in Miami for the first 3 quarters? Wow, patheticsville. Even for most of the fourth quarter, folks. With just over 5 minutes left in this football game, Tim Tebow completed 4 passes out of 14 attempts for 40 yards. Dictionary definition of pathetic, folks. I mean, that is terrible, 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 terrible. Now, just over 5 minutes left. This team is down by 15 points. He leads an 80-yard touchdown drive. They recover the onside kick, and then he leads a 56-yard touchdown drive. And he himself, on the keeper, scores a 2-point conversion to tie that game and to take it to overtime. So as pathetic as that start was, and lame ball as that start was, we've got to go the other way and get it and recognize the game ball for the way he finished that game. At the end of the day, it's a W for Denver, right? If you're at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, the difference between W's and L's. And at the end of the day, man, Tim Tebow got a W beside his column as a starter. Congratulations there. Again, brutal at the start, but for what he did at the end there, we saw enough to warrant the game ball. Game ball as well to guys like Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Wallace. They can share the game ball here because first of all, they both put up pretty good numbers in this last week. A win at Arizona, a 5th loss in a row for Arizona. They're really, really struggling there. Kevin Cobb really struggling, probably deserving of a lame ball, to be honest with you. But the reason Big Ben and Mike Wallace are getting a game ball this week is how about a 95-yard touchdown reception that they hooked up for? That's the longest in team history. And we looked at DeMarco Murray and how impressed we were that he's setting Cowboy records because this Cowboy team is not a Johnny-come-lately organization. Well, same can be said, folks, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have a ton of Super Bowls under their belt. They have a ton of star quarterbacks, star wide receivers under their in the history of their team. So to be setting a record for these guys, I mean, extremely impressive. And getting it done in a W, of course, is all the more impressive for us around here, absolutely. Game ball. Game ball going to Michael Turner. Michael Turner again impressing me. This Atlanta team, we knew coming into 2011 that this Falcons team wanted to throw significantly more than they had in the past. We saw the trade they made on draft day, moving way up to, I believe, number 6 overall to get Julio Jones at wide receiver to pair him with Roddy White. So you have those 2 studs on the outside with Tony Gonzalez over the middle. Wow, and Matt Ryan as QB. So we know the Falcons wanted to go the route of the passing game. But the wins, and really the key wins that Atlanta has had this year, Michael Turner has had his fingerprints all over these wins. As much as this team wants to get more of a high-powered offense and wants to throw the football, Michael Turner, I'll tell you, in the big games, he's really showed that Atlanta is at their best when he's the featured running back, when he's getting in the mid-20s to 30, anywhere from 25 to 30 carries. He's starting to show now that, yes, I know, Coach, that you want to throw the football, but I am an absolute must to get touches 25 to 30 times a game, and this last week was no exception. Very, very impressive there. Lane ball, oh, folks, wow. Oakland Raider fans, what's been happening lately, Oakland Raider fans, you have the absolute low, of course, of losing Al Davis, the high of the wins that followed that game, in particular the one in Oakland that had the ceremony, of course, and then the further high of the following week of picking up Carson Palmer as your quarterback going forward. Well, wow, I mean, you talk about a debut that stunk. Whoa. Carson Palmer throws 3 interceptions, lame ball. The other quarterback on the Raiders team, Kyle Ballard, he also throws 3 interceptions. You kidding me? 6 picks, 6 turnovers from your quarterbacks, folks? Wow, that is, again, we talk about dictionary definition of lame ball. That's going to pretty much get it every time. That's pathetic, folks. I'm sorry, Raider fans. Stand up, love your team, but that's pathetic, absolutely. Speaking of pathetic, and I know you want to love your team, Ravens fans, but wow. Lame balls all around. And some blame balls as well. Never mind game balls and lame balls. How about some blame balls? If you saw this Monday nighter, Baltimore at Jacksonville, wow, this Baltimore offense, a lot of people coming into this game had Baltimore Ravens pegged as one of the top 2 teams in the AFC. Coming out of this game, boy, we got nothing but question marks here. Ray Rice, a pathetic game for Ray Rice. He had like 8 carries, like 18 yards. Just brutal numbers for Ray Rice. Sorry, 8 carries for 28 yards. Brutal numbers for Ray Rice. This was a Baltimore offense that had 0 first downs in the first half, folks. What? No first down. Didn't move the chains once in the first half. Wow, pathetic. And what stunned me, and why I say never mind the game ball or the lame ball, let's call this a blame ball, is because Cam Cameron, the offensive coordinator, and the head coach Harbaugh, I didn't see any adjustments at all in the third quarter, in the second half. Late in the fourth quarter, when they got down by 2 scores, then we saw them go to the hurry up. But to have not have implemented something other than what we saw in the first half, to go back to it in the second half, to go back to that brutal patheticness that we saw, to go back to it the second half without making adjustments, wow. Very underwhelmed, and absolute lame ball there, in my estimation anyway. Well, that was our Week 7 in the National Football League, game balls and lame balls. Sports Talk with Craig Ballard. Again, you know how much I appreciate you joining me. Please keep checking the YouTube channel. Even subscribe to the YouTube channel would be beautiful. You know I would appreciate that. And you and I will see each other again soon.